What would you think if I told you that one of the warmest, most human stories about Michael Jackson isn't on a stage, in a courtroom, or in a tabloid headline, but tucked inside a few seconds of a sci-fi comedy about secret agents and aliens? In Men in Black 2, it flashes by so quickly you could miss it. A familiar face appears on a tiny screen. Pale, sharp features, dark suit, circular glasses, that unmistakable voice. He leans toward the camera and says he wants to be a Men in Black agent, Agent M. The audience laughs. It feels like a joke, a playful nod from the king of pop to a blockbuster franchise. But if you slow that moment down, if you look at it not as a game but as an emotional artifact, something else emerges. That cameo is the front door to a quieter story, a black icon, one of the most watched humans on Earth, asking, almost like a child, to briefly live inside a world he loves. Not the world that dissected him, judged him, devoured him. A different one, a world of secret agents and aliens, where being strange is the premise, not the scandal. The thesis of this video is simple but sharp. Michael Jackson's cameo in Men in Black 2 is not just a cute footnote in movie history. It's a window into his relationship with fame, fantasy, and a Hollywood system that alternately worshipped and weaponized his image. Behind that tiny role lies a long, tender journey of fandom, longing, and the small acts of agency a black superstar could still claim in a white-controlled industry. Picture another screen, years earlier. Not a monitor on the MIB set, but a cinema screen in 1997 when the first Men in Black hits theaters. Somewhere in a darkened room, Michael Jackson sits among other moviegoers. For once, the lights are off, the crowd is looking away from him and toward the story. On screen, Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones patrol a world where bizarre creatures live among humans, hidden in plain sight. The whole premise is that the aliens are here passing as normal, while a secret organization decides what should be seen and what must be erased. For most people, it's just clever sci-fi. For someone like Michael, it must have felt uncomfortably familiar. Because in his own life, he was the alien, the impossible, unreal figure people projected their fantasies and fears onto. The one who looked not quite human enough to some, to others. A black man whose body, skin, and face became public property, endlessly scrutinized. Imagine what it meant for him to sit in that theater and watch a universe where the strange and the extraordinary weren't tabloid bait. They were canon, protected, managed, integrated into a secret order that knew their worth. Men in Black was a comedy, yes, but for Michael Jackson, it was also a mirror funhouse. The freaks are real, they live among us, and there are men in suits deciding what the public gets to know. He didn't just like the movie, he fell for it. Stories from the set and from the industry say the same thing. Michael was genuinely, deeply obsessed with this universe. He wanted what countless fans want after a film they love. He wanted to step through the screen. The difference is that when Michael Jackson dreams of stepping through the screen sometimes answers. So when Men in Black 2 was announced, he didn't sit back and hope someone would think of him. He reached out. Not as the king of pop demanding a starring role, but as a fan who had a very specific ask. Let me be one of you? Let me be an agent. Let me wear the suit, hold the badge, speak into the communicator. Even for a moment. Pause on that. This is a man who could command stadiums, who could call any label executive in the world. Yet the dream he chases here isn't another record, another tour, another throne. It's a tiny beam of light in a giant franchise. A few seconds where he doesn't have to play Michael Jackson. He can play Agent M. The production team was surprised, but delighted. They didn't roll their eyes and say, "Here comes a diva." They designed a role for him, and not just any role. They put him in the exact position his whole life had prepared him to inhabit. The liminal space between human and other, official and outsider, joke and confession. On that little screen inside the film, Michael Jackson stands at the threshold of the Men in Black, half in the joke, half in the dream. Most viewers never look past the joke. They laugh, they point, "Hey, it's Michael," and the story moves on. But if you pay attention, If you watch that cameo through the lens of race, celebrity, and control, you start to see what this video is unraveling. A man who spent his life being treated like an alien finally finds a world where being an alien can be fun, safe, even heroic. And he doesn't wait for Hollywood to cast him. He asks for it. On set, the fantasy looks strangely ordinary. No cosmic skies, no swirling CGI, just cables on the floor, crew members in headsets, a small monitor glowing in the dim. And in the middle of that practical, unromantic space, Michael Jackson stands in a black suit and tie, like any other actor waiting for action. He is not there as the king of pop, at least not in his own mind. He is there as a recruit, as someone finally allowed to step across the invisible line between spectator and story. The crew remembers the energy, that almost childlike eagerness, the way he leaned into the idea of being Agent M as if it were more than a punchline. He rehearses his lines over and over, not because he needs to, but because he enjoys trying different shades, slightly more serious, slightly more playful, a little more deadpan, a little more wide-eyed. To the people behind the camera, it becomes clear. This isn't a man phoning in a cameo for clout. This is a fan savoring the chance to exist inside a universe he has loved from the outside. Every take feels like a tiny rebellion against a reality where Michael Jackson rarely gets to just be a nerd about anything. Look at the way he carries himself in that short scene. Upright but not regal, professional but slightly off-kilter, a little too intense for the silliness of the moment, which is exactly what makes it funny. He talks into the screen trying to convince the men in black that he belongs with them, that he can help, that he's useful. The whole joke on the surface is that Michael Jackson, of all people, wants to be a secret agent when he's the most conspicuous man on the planet. But beneath the joke lies a softer truth. Here is a black man whose entire life has been surveilled and controlled by institutions. Labels, courts, governments, media networks, asking, even in jest, to sit on the other side of the control panel. In the universe of Men in Black, the agents are the ones who decide what version of reality the public gets to remember. They wipe minds, they shape the narrative, they protect the fragile illusion of normalcy. In the universe of Michael Jackson's real life, that job belonged to others, PR teams, editors, prosecutors, paparazzi. He was always the one being edited, never the one editing. So when he leans into that little monitor and offers himself as Agent M, it resonates as something more, a brief, playful inversion of power. For once, the alien volunteers to become one of the men who manage aliens. You might dismiss that as reading too much into a joke. But ask yourself, why do jokes like this land so hard? Why does seeing Michael Jackson asked to be an agent feel instantly iconic? Because the image is already loaded with everything the viewer knows. His history with accusations, the endless tabloid obsession, the way he was treated as monstrous and magical in the same breath. It all hovers around that frame, even though no one names it. The set that day becomes a kind of truce zone. For a few hours, he's not defending himself, not answering hostile questions, not standing in front of cameras that want to catch him slipping. He's surrounded instead by a crew that's enthused, charmed, maybe a little in awe, but ultimately just trying to get the shot. People laugh between takes, not at him, but with him. The tension that usually follows his presence everywhere he goes dissolves into something rare: safety. And there, the thesis of this video deepens. His cameo is not only about fandom, it's about one of the last spaces where Michael Jackson could still choose how to appear. In an era when narratives about him were spiraling out of his control, he walked onto a soundstage and said yes to a version of himself that felt light, mischievous, in on the joke. Not the haunted recluse, not the tabloid monster, not the tragic genius, just a guy in a suit who really wants to be part of the team. But even this gentle dream has shadows. There's a bitter irony in watching him beg for membership in an organization that can erase memories, when his own life is already being rewritten in real time by strangers. The Men in Black protect humans from the knowledge of how strange the universe really is. The media machine surrounding Michael thrives on exposing exaggerating, and distorting his strangeness. You, as a viewer, are not neutral in this equation. You laughed at the cameo, maybe you still do, and that laughter is real, pure, legitimate. Yet it coexists with a more uncomfortable truth. You are also part of the audience that consumed every iteration of Michael Jackson the system served up. The innocent prodigy, the revolutionary dancer, the bizarre recluse, the scandal, the meme, and now the charming, self-aware cameo. The warmth of the Men in Black set, the affection of the crew, the delight of the directors at having him there, these are genuine, but they occur inside an industry that long ago learned how to slice a man's image into marketable fragments. Here, in this one small fragment, Michael manages to smuggle in something the machine can't fully sanitize. His own joy. Joy at being there, joy at playing, joy at stepping into a role he asked for, not one that was imposed. In that sense, the cameo becomes a miniature rebellion disguised as fan service. He is not simply decorating the movie, he is claiming space inside it. He reaches through the glass of the screen that has always trapped him and, for a moment, chooses its terms. But every moment on film is also a fossil of the time around it. And the time around Men in Black 2 was anything but carefree for Michael Jackson. By the time Men in Black 2 reached cinemas, the world outside that movie screen was already turning on Michael Jackson in ways the film could never show. Court cases, investigations, late-night jokes, think pieces coated in concern but dripping with spectacle. His life was being carved up and auctioned as public entertainment. In that climate, his cameo reads differently. It's not just a playful appearance. It's a flash of softness in an era that wanted him hardened into either villain or victim. This is where the thesis of this story cuts deepest. That tiny role is a portal into how a black icon tries to hold on to wonder while the world treats him like evidence. Hollywood, the music industry, the tabloid machine, they all helped build the myth of Michael Jackson, and they all found ways to profit from tearing it apart. Yet inside this one sci-fi comedy, he manages to smuggle in an alternate universe, one where his strangeness is not on trial but on purpose. Look again at Agent M. On the surface, he's a gag. Michael Jackson as an alien-obsessed informant, practically begging to be made a Men in Black agent. But think about what the Men in Black actually are. Gatekeepers of the strange. They decide what humans can handle, what truths must be hidden to preserve sanity. When Agent M says he wants in, the scene winks at you, but it also opens a question. What would it look like if a man like Michael were trusted with power over how the strange is framed, instead of being endlessly framed as strange himself? The answer in real life is that he never got that chance. Others edited his story. Others decided which angles to show, which narratives to push, which headlines to repeat. His body became a battleground of jokes, fears, racial anxieties, and moral panics. He was not a Men in Black agent. He was one of the beings they would have quietly filed away, classified, and hidden from sight. Yet for those few seconds, he writes a quiet fan fiction of his own life. In some corner of the multiverse, Michael Jackson is the one holding the neuralizer. He's the one choosing which memories to keep, which pains to erase, which versions of himself the public gets to see. It's a fantasy, yes, but for someone who has been consumed by fame since childhood, fantasy can be medicine. You might feel tempted to leave the story there, in that warm place. Michael on set, crew laughing, directors smiling, fans thrilled. It's comforting to believe that even amidst all the chaos, he got to have this one year's joyful moment. And that comfort is not a lie. The sweetness is real. This was a win, however small. He saw a world he loved, he asked to step inside it, and they said yes. But this video is not just a postcard from a happy memory. It is an autopsy of how even the sweetest moments in a Black icon's life are wrapped in history, power, and cost. Because the same Hollywood that welcomed Agent M for a few seconds is part of the larger ecosystem that consumed Michael Jackson for decades. The same audiences who squealed with delight at his cameo were also readers, viewers, and clickers in the vast economy of speculation around his body and soul. That doesn't make the joy fake, it makes it fragile. There's a haunting irony in the fact that Men in Black is a story about erasing traumatic knowledge from people's minds to keep them functional, while Michael's own trauma was constantly replayed, magnified, and monetized. In the film, the neuralizer protects civilians from knowing too much. In reality, nothing protected Michael from being known too much and understood too little. And yet, he kept reaching for worlds where he could be more than the role the system had written for him. Theme parks, music videos that felt like short films, Neverland as a twisted, imperfect attempt to build a universe where childhood could last longer than the industry allowed. The Men in Black cameo fits into that larger pattern, a man using the few tools available, fame, relationships, cultural capital, to construct small pockets of narrative where he could breathe as a fan, not just as a phenomenon. You, watching this now, stand at a crossroads of interpretation. You can see that cameo as a meme, a nostalgia button, something to clip for social media with a laughing caption. Or you can see it as evidence of something quieter and more radical, a black superstar, relentlessly dehumanized, slipping through a side door into a universe where his love for pop culture lets him be human again. A nerd, a dreamer, a man who still gets excited about movies. That is the scandal this story is really exposing. Not who Michael Jackson was behind closed doors, but how easy it is for a culture to flatten a life like his into headlines and punchlines, even when the evidence of his softness is right there, smiling at you from a sci-fi monitor. Being a black icon in a hostile system means carrying other people's fantasies on your back, even when they crush you. It means being turned into both saint and monster, often in the same news cycle. It means grabbing joy wherever you can find it, even in something as seemingly trivial as a cameo in Men in Black 2. That moment is not separate from his pain, it grows out of it. It's what happens when a wounded person carves out 5 seconds of screen time to remember what it feels like to simply love a story. In the end, Agent M doesn't join the Men in Black. The joke is that he's left on the outside, still yearning, still waiting for the call. Michael Jackson knew that feeling well. The institutions that controlled his image never fully let him in as an equal. They needed him as a spectacle, not as a partner. But through that cameo, he slipped in anyway, for a heartbeat on his own terms. Cinema cannot heal everything, but sometimes it captures a truth the world refuses to say aloud. That even the most mythologized figure on earth is still, at the core, a human being who loves things, who dreams, who geeks out over sci-fi, and wants to wear the cool suit like everyone else. That is the legacy encoded in those few seconds of Men in Black 2. Not just a clever Easter egg, but a tiny, luminous rebellion against a lifetime of being seen but not understood. Legends may fall, but their truth always rises.